You may not have any of these knives, but this might be the one thing you want to save up for. I'm going to explain why probably everyone should have at least one saltwater option in their collection. Alright, so those who are familiar with knives might have noticed there's a red herring here. There is a knife that is not actually a saltwater knife, even though it uses a steel that is very capable of being corrosion resistant. That doesn't mean everything else in the knife actually is. This is the drop bear in titanium scales and LC200N, and the springs and other things would easily corrode out in any saltwater environment. So this is not what I would recommend. These other 6 though, on the other hand, you could leave these in the ocean for literally weeks and it will do almost nothing to the knife. Name another knife that could do that. Now, it's true that there are fixed blade knives capable of doing this, diving knives and other things made of different steels that will basically be impervious to corrosion, either because of high chromium content or nitrogen or something along those lines. But they don't actually fill this role. This is one of the very few times when a folding knife can be better than a fixed blade knife, because they're so small and so light they can fit in places that a fixed blade simply cannot. And that is why, even if you're only buying budget knives in your life, right? Or maybe you're not a knife buyer at all, of all the knives to consider, I think a saltwater knife might be the best choice. So we're going to talk about ones that are dedicated primarily to water tasks, and then we're going to talk about more EDC friendly options, and then a couple that are sort of in between. The ones that I have dedicated strictly to water sports that I keep in surf shorts or whatever it is in a zipper pocket, that's these 3. And these are all made in either H1 or H2 steel, something that pretty much only gets made by Spyderco. And the steel is, well, you're not going to rust this steel, basically, is what it comes down to. Now, the downside is that they kind of on the softer side, like 55 HRC most of the time. But herein lies the rub. When you work when you work the steel, it will harden. So it's a work hardening steel. So here it might be 55 HRC, but at the very, very edges of the serration, it's well over 70. So the very, very interesting phenomenon that happens with this particular steel, and it is because of that that I have gotten them only in serrations, because this is going to hold up much, much longer than even some of the more expensive steels because of that property. So I really, really like this particular combination. And I have to admit, serrations are way better than people realize. Now, I don't agree with partial serrations per se, but fully serrated blades have a place. And I think when it comes to water sports, that is the place, because the sawing motion that you can apply will cut through things very, very, very quickly, especially fibrous materials. So this small one, which is very, very light, it's the Dragonfly in H2, fully serrated. This one is the one I keep in my swim trunks. You can actually get one that's kind of a hook blade, fully serrated. I don't know which one's better. I kind of tend to lean this being a little bit more versatile, but this is a great choice to kind of keep tucked in and you forget it until you need it. And I have literally washed pants with it, and it doesn't care. The knife, it just doesn't give a damn. It doesn't care about whatever you're going to do to it. This thing is so hard to destroy when it comes to corrosion or water. It just laughs it off. Now, of course, you're not going to baton with these or anything like that, but for actual cutting tasks, these things can last an entire lifetime. The other 2, I got the Delica sized one, and in retrospect, it doesn't fit in either place, and I think I probably made a little bit of a mistake getting this, because we'll talk about others. I highly recommend picking this one or this one, and I'll explain why. So we already talked about what I use the Dragonfly for, but this knife is a true boating knife. This is a knife I would absolutely carry on a boat, and it's got a very long, almost 4-inch serrated edge. This is going to cut through fibrous materials like rope very, very, very quickly. And that is potentially a safety related concern. So I highly recommend something like this. It's going to work whether you have gloves on or not, and that includes the lock, which doesn't require a high level of dexterity. And yeah, I really do like this knife as a dedicated one for a boating kit or fishing kit. This is going to be big enough to do fillet work if you had to fillet a fish, absolutely. Where I think this one is just a little bit too short. So if you're going to pick, I would pick one of these two for dedicated fishing or outdoor boating tasks, something along those lines. For different purposes, you just have to figure out which one. But let's say you're buying this as your only expensive knife, right? And you want it to be as versatile as possible. That's where these other two knives, I'll put this aside for the time being, that's where these other two knives come in. And I think picking either one of these two is going to be a really, really good choice if you're just looking for the purpose of the knife, but you want to use it for literally everything, like one knife to do it all. The Native 5 Salt, talked about a ton by different people, excellent ergonomics, 3-inch blade, meaning it's legal in damn near everywhere. And yeah, made right here in the US, made in LC200N, or in MagnaCut now. You can get this in MagnaCut as well. But if I'm being honest, ever since I picked up this knife, I haven't actually used the Native 5 Salt because I think that this is even more versatile. I find it to be a lot more comfortable in hand. It is slip joint, meaning that it's legal in some places that this knife will not be. And yeah, I just really like this knife. I don't even know what to say. I highly recommend this one. They have both serrated and non-serrated in this shape. Just a really good all-purpose knife that can do pretty much anything you want that doesn't involve gross abuse of a knife. If you're talking about actually slicing with something, this will do a very, very good job, whether it's food prep, whether it's utility tasks. It's just a really, really good option. Now, the last one that I own is this large I think it's Atlantic Salt, and this is also an LC200N. And I think that given the choice and the context, I think the fully serrated one is a little bit better because it's also potentially a safety knife. But this has purposes in maybe a fishing kit because it is a pseudo, I don't want to call it a fillet knife, but it's big enough to be damn near what you're looking for. And you can leave it in a tackle box or in a small bag or in a pouch, in a vest, and basically ignore it until it's needed. That's kind of what's nice about these knives, is they don't require much maintenance at all. In fact, I don't think I've ever oiled a single one of these knives. I don't think I've ever done anything other than rinse it, shake it out, and let it sit. I mistreat these knives by all contexts, and they just don't give a damn. They really don't. I think Ben Banters at one point, Ben Peterson, who was working for Blade HQ at the time, took these knives to the Dead Sea and left them there for like weeks and came back, and they were basically the same as they were before. I mean, kind of crazy stuff. So this is a really unique context of knives that you should consider, whether you're only buying inexpensive knives or you don't have anything like this in your collection and you'd like something to fill that role. Highly recommended. I should also bring out a spoiler here, I think, that might be relevant. I went to Blade Show 2023 and I saw two knives in their prototype case that they're definitely going to make that you might want to know about. So in case you want to wait, these are knives you could also get. The first one is going to be a MagnaCut Manix 2 Salt. So all the components, all the screws and everything are going to be treated so that they can resist salt water. I don't know what they're going to do about that spring, but it's a saltwater variety, so that's really, really cool. And the one that really excites me, the one that I'm most excited about, is they are making a Para 3 lightweight salt knife in MagnaCut. Oh, that is like the perfect combination of an EDC knife that can literally do it all. It can go anywhere and do almost anything as a cutting tool. I am so excited about that knife. So if you wanted to wait, that's not a bad choice. I think even if you had access to those knives, I think the UK penknife is still a really good choice, as is the Dragonfly, or this version, which I think is the Atlantic Salt in H1 or H2 fully serrated. These are all really, really good choices. I hope this was at least introducing you to a new genre of knife. The only other brand that makes knives like this is a company called Quiet Carry, and frankly, because their texturing on their handles isn't as extreme, not really designed as much for the task at hand, but more for EDC, I think these are still going to be slightly ahead. And they're also quite a bit cheaper when in comparison. So these are the three that I would consider first and foremost. And maybe the Native 5 Salt in either MagnaCut or LC200N. But consider one, I'm telling you, because it might be the only knife in your collection that you will take in those contexts. And it's nice to have something on hand. As always, guys, thank you for your time, and we'll talk again soon.